Morning, everyone, and welcome back to another Adobe Live Studio Session. I'm your host, Emily Poulin, and it really feels like no matter where you are in the world right now, we're just talking about sports. We're watching it, hanging out with our friends, and we thought, what more could we do today than talk about it also on the podcast? So today, joining me in studio is LA-based graphic designer for the Chargers, Jorge Rodriguez. And then with us, keeping an eye on you chat, is Carlos Andres, graphic designer from Phoenix. So today, we're going to really dig into your career, what it looks like to work in sports, and kind of get into some of the details about how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, for sure.
I do want to say one last hello to chat. We're doing this in real time, so if you have questions, comments, Carlos will be keeping an eye on you, and we would love for you to be a part of the conversation. So Jorge, sports. Firstly, who are you rooting for? Just kidding. I would love to hear a little bit about how you got into sports and maybe talking about what your day-to-day looks like.
Sure. So for me, I've always played sports. I'm the oldest of four. So, for me, that was my way to get out of the house and go do more things. And I was always partial to soccer. That was always my sport of choice. But then, I always, loved the competitive aspect of it. And then as I progressed, I realized, I'm probably not going to play in college, probably not going to play professional. So I got more realistic about, what way existed where I could still enjoy sports, play sports, be around sports, but then still do something as a career. And so then that landed me with my current role now with the Chargers as a lead designer. And it's the coolest job in the world. I absolutely love it.
I bet. I mean, I feel like there is always that point in some people's lives where you're like, you know what, sports isn't going to be my final thought, as I was hoping that it was. But so were you always a creative person, or what did that journey look like for you from the beginning?
Yeah, I'd say so. I feel like, my parents were always really on me about getting good grades. And I love them for that. But I think the classes that I always excelled the most at were more creatively driven. So art classes and stuff like that. I was never that great of a drawer, but I would always kind of take a little bit extra time to make sure everything looked good, and that anything that had my name on it, that, looked legit. But yeah, I think as I got older, art classes weren't really a thing. So it was kind of up to you to figure out where you could kind of make stuff. And so for me, making stuff on my phone, was the first thing. That was the first step. Me and my buddy Costas back home, we were in middle school, and he got me really into making designs on my phone using Superimpose, which is a super, I don't know, looking back at how we made designs, it was it took forever and they looked bad and whatever. But me and him kind of quietly competed with each other to grow our Instagram pages. And eventually after doing that for a while, I got into Photoshop, and then it kind of just took off. It was always a hobby of mine. And I loved it. It was the thing that I would choose to do on late nights, and I would stay up really late to finish a graphic. And I remember growing up, probably my most fun memories were I'd have the NBA finals on in the background. I'd have my phone or my computer right in front of me. I would listen to some music, and I'd just be making a graphic, and that would be, that was bliss for me. And so now doing that as a career, getting paid for it, it's an absolute dream.
That's amazing. Wait, so were you making sports graphics from a young age, or what were you?
Always.
Really?
Always. I don't think I've ever made, I didn't know other types of design existed, honestly.
It doesn't even matter at this point, yeah.
So I was always geeked. Every time I would see new photos for a game drop, I would instantly download them. I would cut them out. I would start making graphics with them. But it's always been sports for me. I've as I've gotten older, obviously been more exposed to different types of design. But yeah, it's anything with a sports player, man. That was always my thing. So
I love that. Well, so were you always then with the Chargers, or what does your other client list look like for people who maybe not be familiar?
Yeah, the first client that I ever worked with was more or less Mizzou Athletics. That was where I started, and then from there, throughout my time in college, I did freelance and internships for the Orioles, the Seahawks, and the Chiefs, doing work here and there. And so that was really cool. That was kind of the first, you're seeing your work show up on people's social media, and you're seeing thousands of likes, and you're oh my God, this is crazy. But yeah, that's kind of where it started. And then after I graduated, I got my role with the Chargers. So been out here for about 2 years. And coming up in my third season. So it's such a crazy experience, and it's cool seeing seeing the players I used to watch on TV, in the building, and on media day, for example, we'll shoot photos with them, and I was on the puppy calendar shoot this year, which was really cool. But you'd see these big athletes come over and play with dogs and stuff like that, and just be really they'd be kids, but it's a super super cool experience. I think being around that environment every day, being with really creative individuals. our team is like, I'm very much like always been involved with sports design, but we've had people that went to design school and some people that are self-taught. And so they bring a bunch of different types of design to our team. And it's awesome learning from them. Like I've learned so much. It's pretty cool.
I want to touch on that because unexpectedly, you did not go to school for design or creative work. Can we talk a little bit about what you actually did study and kind of what you learned from that? Because I thought it was so fascinating.
Yeah. So I was a design major, and so that was, or not design major.
I was like, wait a minute.
Math. I was a math major, and I bounced around like a few different times. I think I was like stats and like engineering or whatever, and like all those for no more than a day. But then math ended up sticking, and I think part of it is because I always kind of struggled with math in college or in high school. I remember like my math teacher, Ms. Darrow, like she did not like me. Like I was always kind of like, kind of have to in the homework. I'd always work with people like to get assignments done. I vividly remember telling her, I was like, Ms. Darrow, I'm never going to use math ever. Like it's not my thing, like whatever. And then I got to college and a lot of the journalism classes that I was taking, because that's originally what I went to school for. A lot of those classes, like I was just kind of like, I feel like I already kind of knew what they were talking about. I had already started making designs, posting them on social, seeing like, what works, what doesn't. And so I was already kind of doing that workshopping that they kind of talk about with showcasing your work. And so I was like, well, if I'm, going to school, I want to be able to go to the classes, learn something new. And I guarantee like if I would have just stuck around for maybe like an extra semester, I would have started learning new things. But I think I really just wanted to go, show up, study, learn something new. And math was always that thing I struggled with. So I figured that would be the best thing to kind of like start from scratch or whatever. And so it ended up like in my work now really helps because, with creative people, like I'm innately pretty like unorganized. Like I'm just not, like my files are not really organized. My, coworkers can attest to that. They're not, the most clean, but math really kind of gave me a little bit more of a structure in dealing with more abstract problems. So when you're dealing with a client, they'll come to you with a brief. Our stream tomorrow will kind of talk a little bit about that, but they'll come to you with a brief. They'll have some really abstract terms, kind of like design buzzwords. And your job as a designer is to kind of translate that into like actionable design work. And so math, functions sort of the same way, where you get a really abstract problem. You're like, I don't know how to do this at all. And then you have to kind of complete a set of steps to get to an end goal. And that's pretty brutal because it's like, it's right or wrong. Like, you either do it right or not. And so, the creative work that we do is a little bit more forgiving. And so as long as you have a little bit of a structure, it really helps you bring like a really great product to life, which I love. So it's really helped a lot with the work that I do.
I think it's so fascinating. Firstly, that you didn't necessarily like math and you said, I'm going to do that as my full-time gig. I think that's pretty interesting. But you took that framework, you lifted that and you said, okay, I'm going to apply this to my design work and to my creative work to give myself that structure. Are there a set list of questions that you ask, or like how are you applying that framework to your creative work, really like in the details of it?
I think the biggest thing that I try to do is like for me, like with my freelance at work, for example, like I just recently started hiring people on to help me kind of facilitate projects and that kind of stuff. But before that, it was just me. And so when you're getting a client, like, and you're realizing that there's a huge list of deliverables, the thing that I always try to ask myself is like, what is the most efficient way to get it done? Which sounds simple, but really like, outsourcing like cutouts, player cutouts, or outsourcing someone like to do the resizing. Like for me, I like to spend as much time as I can on developing like a really good product that like I can show, like, I'll do like a 4x5 design, for example. I'll send that over to a client. They'll look at it. They're like, love it, whatever. Okay. And then I'll send it over to someone to resize. And then I'll start working on the rest of this stuff. And so before that, I mean, I was just doing everything. And, all that stuff took maybe 30% longer than it should, outside of like the design ideation side of things. So like the efficiency has always been a kind of like the first question I ask myself. But outside of that, I mean, I think the math really helped in that. Like you kind of get in like a weird flow state, because I was not good at math, like period. And so to sit there, to study, to like have to spend hours to like learn something, that you just don't really care much about, like you build a tolerance for that sort of stuff. And so once you're actually doing something you do like, you can really like take it and, get in that flow state, get stuff done. Like, so for me, I wouldn't say I'm always working, but I'm always kind of making stuff, always writing stuff down. But it makes it really easy to kind of get in a good groove of getting a lot of things done in a short period of time. So I'd probably say that's how I map it on.
You said something really interesting that stood out to me when we were talking before this. So you're like, if I can be good at something I don't like, math, then imagine how good I'll be at something that I really do like design.
Yeah.
Can you bring a little bit more color to that philosophy?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think it's always good to learn as many things as possible. Like I'm always trying to learn new skills. Like guitar is a big hobby of mine. Like trying to get back into reading, like just trying to do just more things like that exist outside of Photoshop. But I think ultimately like you're never worse off for getting a different type of skill set. And I think for me, it really helped getting jobs and landing freelance clients because there's a lot of people that go to design school that learn design, whatever, and their portfolio looks very similar to other people who do the same thing. For me, like, I think I never really had to think about separating my work. I think it was just always kind of a little bit different because it was more aligned with like my hobbies, my skills, things that I enjoyed or things that I was exposing myself to. So it was a really cool way to kind of build your own niche, which I think, that's kind of what helps a lot of freelancers kind of make a good living is building their niche, owning that niche, and learning how to deal with a lot of clients in that niche. I'd probably say like that's a little bit more about that philosophy, but that's sort of how I think about it.
No, I think that's great. When you were starting out too, you were saying that you kind of were looking to designs that you really liked, that you were really interested in, and you thought, like I could do that. And that's kind of how you started to learn and teach yourself. Can you tell us about that story?
Sure. Yeah. I was super naive. Like I think that's one of the things with design that was really great is like, you look at something and, if it's like very minimal, like white backgrounds, like black and white player cutout, you're like, dang, like that's, I could do that. It's really easy.
Easy.
And then you hop into Photoshop and you realize this is kind of hard. And like,
where's the button?
Yeah, no, seriously. And that was like kind of that first like little inkling that I had that made me like want to start designing. And I would follow like a lot of creators that really align with that more minimal style. And so it kind of lowered the barrier for entry for a piece, not feeling like, I had to spend 5-6 hours doing it when I was just getting started. Like if you're making something with like a white background and like, a lot of negative space, like that's its own type of design style. Like it does not take that long to do versus like a movie poster with like all this lighting, all the shadows. So like that's where I started. And like I said, very naive with it. Like the first stuff I made was not good. But it kept me coming back and kind of, I was able to like chip away slowly at becoming a little bit better of a designer. And so then as my taste kind of evolved, as the designers I followed evolved, like the work I started making also sort of changed to be a little bit more technical, like lean really into that lighting and shadows that I do for like all my graphics. But it's been a cool thing. And like, the time flies. Like I think, it's been about like 8 years, since I've started like picking up Photoshop, and, there's been so much that's changed with the software, so much that's changed with like just the design landscape. But just being able to like show up every day, make stuff, like, I mean, it's such a dream. So I'm very thankful for it. And I love just like putting on the headphones or like throwing on some music and just like making something. Like it's such a cool thing to do.
To have uninterrupted design time is, I feel like, everyone's goal. You're like, oh man, just you describing that, putting the headphones, just focusing, working, that sounds,
no, I
not
love
everyone
it.
is experienced every day. So over 8 years, right, you've worked with the program for quite a long time. You even just touched on, things have changed, like things have evolved.
Yeah.
Are there any advancements, changes that like from day one, you're like, oh wow, this is like night and day difference for me?
Yeah. I mean, I would say like, it's kind of hard to ignore like AI. I think that's like a huge like point of contention, but it's just a huge like unavoidable like elephant in the room with the design industry. For me, I think it's it's an interesting thing, and I think whenever we like kind of had talked like pre-interview, I mentioned like watches were like a big part of like things that I enjoy, and so they went through like the industry went through like a similar situation with like the introduction of like quartz movements and stuff like that, and so in the 60s. These watches, like up to that point, were done like mechanical. Like people were, making every piece, and then these, batteries basically came in and made watches more accurate. They made it easier to produce, a lot cheaper, and then it basically undermined the entire industry. A lot of like really big brands kind of disappeared, except for ones that kind of doubled down on like the heritage and leaning into like more handcrafted elements. And so for me, like I kind of look at the design space, whether you are with AI or not, like, it's kind of whatever, but doubling down on like your skill set, what you like, for me, like I just love like reverse engineering graphics. Like I'll see a graphic, I'm like, this is super cool. Like part of me just wants to know how to do it myself. And I'd say like that's like a bigger change, but also it's like kind of gave me a little bit more of a unique like if I'm pitching myself to a client, like I've had people say like, just want to make sure like we're not using any AI, like whatever. And they're kind of like hush hush about it. I'm like, but yeah, no worries. Like, whether you're with it or against it, like I'm cool. We're making cool stuff. that's what I'm about. I probably say it's the biggest change, but yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, Photoshop it's changed a little bit. But the biggest change was going from like making on the phone, because that was brutal. Like that was like doing player cutouts, whatever. Like it was.
Some may say impossible.
Yeah, it was a nightmare. I don't know how we did it, but I probably say that was like the biggest jump. But
you've been very selective though about, what are new tools that I'm adding, and we even discussed a little bit about Firefly boards and how you've been quick to adopt that one in some ways, but then also quick to implement that and share that with your team. Can you talk to us about what that is?
I just love it. Like for me, like I think that when you have so many different like themes or ideas, like especially if you're doing like a rebrand or you're doing like a set of projects, like it's really easy to kind of get lost and lose track of what the like the main point of what you're trying to do is. Like a rebrand doesn't happen because you get tired of making the graphics. Well, the graphics aren't resonating with your audience. So okay, what do they resonate with? Is it X, Y, and Z? And then you kind of use that as like a framework. So boards have been really great in that you have sort of like all that stuff like on a board. You're able to kind of just like idea vomit, whatever, get everything out on your page. And our team uses it a lot. Like I was I don't know if I like inserted it. But I think it ended up being really easy to kind of like, put a lot of inspiration and mood boards together, like on there, share it with the team, and then kind of have everybody like, just add their stuff in. I love it. I mean, I use it all the time. I use it with my freelance clients. I use it just personally for me if I'm making a graphic from scratch. But yeah, that's probably been like the biggest tool like I've added into my toolbox in a minute. So.
Firefly boards is great. I think it is, again, one of the newer tools and programs into the Adobe creative atmosphere. And so it's interesting to see, how are people finding success with it? And what does it mean to them? And just kind of exploring it together, I think has been a really cool opportunity.
For sure.
I do want to check in on chat. I know we've been chatting away over here, but how's everyone doing?
Yeah, we're doing good over here. So we got Ethan Paulo. I don't know if you know
nice.
Who that is.
Yeah.
Said Jorge,
Fallow.
my guy. So we got some fans in here. And then someone just said, Jorge has a great way to relight a scene like the ones he was doing at the beginning of the soccer tournament. I'm not sure if we're allowed to say.
I think keeping it soccer tournament is perfect. We all know in our hearts what we're talking about. Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. Well, it sounds like people obviously are a huge fan of your work. Tomorrow, you'll be showcasing some stuff, but we want to give a quick little shout out to tomorrow. Yeah,
no, tomorrow's gonna be great. Kind of like what we talked about today, like you're going to get a brief. That's like, when you're working with freelance clients, like they'll come to you with a brief, they'll kind of give you a rundown of what they want. I think sometimes it's hard for people to verbalize, what they're actually looking for if they're not designers. So kind of the goal of tomorrow is going to be able to like go through a brief, figure it out, kind of pull out those buzzwords, figure out how to actually make graphics, by virtue of those. And then obviously like, I'm a Texas native. So there's a lot of Texas themes in there. We're going to be rebranding a soccer team tomorrow. The Dallas Bandits is the team. So yeah, stay tuned.
Not a real team for those who are not sports people. Don't worry.
Don't worry. Not a real team, but super stoked for that. It'll be fun.
I'm so excited. Yeah, tomorrow's going to be a great day. So we'll be starting off at 9 a.m. Tomorrow. So tune in wherever you're watching 9 a.m. PST. We'll be here in the studio for a good couple hours showcasing all things design and sports related, and Firefly boards will be a hero of tomorrow. So if you're curious to like learn more, what does this mean for me? Tomorrow's going to be a great day for you. Okay, so you went to college for math, you graduated. At the end, you had two very different job offers, and you had to make a very tough call. Yeah. Tell us the story.
So my grandfather, he worked in the government for a while. He was working in human resources. So for him, like he really thought that path was going to be a good use of my like math skill set. And I think he was right. I think he was like, you need to have a backup option in case design doesn't work out. I think he was absolutely right in saying that. And so like I applied to a bunch of different roles in the government, and then eventually had gotten like a job offer, a conditional job offer at the same time I got my Chargers offer. And so for me, like, I mean, the decision was pretty easy. I mean, I wanted to work in sports. Like that was always the goal. But you do get a little bit of that, like, is this something that will work as a career? Like, a career is I'm only, 2-3 years into like my full-time like work journey, and, mapping that out to 30 years, like what does that look like? And so I'm still trying to figure that out. But I think at that time I was really trying to figure it out. And so I was kind of weighing more of like the reality of, is this something that's more sustainable and will make use of something that, I went to go like study, or, do I kind of lean into a hobby of mine and make it like a full-time thing? And like I won't like dramatize it. Like it was really easy. Like, working, in the NFL, like that was always the goal. But yeah, I mean, I think, it really would have done a disservice to like my degree if I didn't find ways to insert it and use it as a way to like make my work a little bit more unique. But yeah, the decision is pretty easy. I mean, I think I had to kind of entertain my grandpa a little bit. Like, yeah, I'm really thinking about it.
I really gotta,
we'll see. Yeah,
another day.
And I don't know if he's watching, but if he's watching, I'm sorry. But yeah, it was a really easy decision for me, and I think up to this point is like I have no regrets about it. I think it was the absolute best thing to do.
I think there's something to say for creative careers, whether it's like an internal conversation or conversations with your family where everyone's kind of like, are you sure?
Yeah.
Is this a real job? Like, what do you actually do all day? Like, even now I'll tell people, oh, I'm a graphic designer. They're like, so what do you do exactly? So I think that's always a conversation that you need to confront and, weigh your options and figure out what that means. But I feel like a lot of people here to say, yes, all things good.
Yeah. My family, like I can't speak highly enough about them and like their support. My dad's a doctor, my mom's a nurse, and so they're very, very educated, extremely smart people. And I think at face value you kind of see that and you're like, why didn't they kind of push that on you, whatever. And they were just always like super supportive. They saw how much I loved it, and they saw, I think especially at a young age, like seeing a little bit of like results of like, oh, like his work's being shown, by this team, or, his work, got this many likes, like, you must be doing something, like, as long as you can monetize it, like you're good. But yeah, they've always been like extremely supportive. And they get, really stoked to like see, my work now. And like, I was able to bring my mom to a few Chargers games, last season and stuff like that. And she gets geeked for that stuff. Like, and I get really happy to like bring her, someone who's like supported my work for so long, like to like see like what the end goal was. And obviously, like, there's decades and decades of like making more stuff and like, all the stuff that comes with that. But just being in the moment with her and being in the moment with like my family, bringing them out, having them see, I mean, from Texas, you don't really think about going to LA and like doing all that kind of stuff. But once you do it, like it becomes a really cool opportunity and a really cool thing to share with my family and the people that I love. So it's awesome.
I think that's so special. You shared this story with me when we were talking about this interview about creating a stadium from not Photoshop or other things. If you want to share this story,
no, I love it. I thought
it was really awesome.
No, it's I love it, and I don't think my parents like really. I don't know if they remember it.
Let's see. We'll play the clip back.
But I think I must have been in like first or second grade. It was like a classic, like, mom, like, I got a school project due tomorrow. Like, can we go to the store and grab stuff? And of course, it's like, 8 p.m., which like if you're a kid, 8 p.m. is like 3 a.m.
Yeah, you have no idea.
With like kid time. So, I told her that, and she's such a saint. She was like, yeah, fine, whatever. And then go to the store, and it was like a popsicle stick project. And so, obviously, like I grew up a huge like basketball fan. And so like the Mavericks were like the big team for me growing up. And so, we come home and we have all these popsicle sticks and hot glue gun and everything. And, my mom and dad are just like helping me, I'll say. They were making
They're doing it, yeah.
But they were making this stadium, this basketball stadium with like Cheerios being the players. And they even like drew out like the Mavericks logo at the center court.
Wow. Designers.
They went above and beyond. And like, I was so young, but I just remember thinking like, that is like the coolest thing. And I think I kept it for like as long as I could before like we kept them moving, and it probably got lost in the shuffle and probably broke. But I just remember thinking like that was such a cool like outlook on like your work and like your output, where you're a kid and most parents would be like, all right, whatever, like we'll just get this done, whatever, make like a boat or something, I don't know. But they really were like, let's make it a thing, like let's take the time. And of course we stayed up super late. I think I went to bed, they finished, I came out in the morning and I saw it and I was like, this is like the coolest thing ever. I brought it to school, was so excited to share it. And then that became a moment where anytime I would get a project at school or anytime I would take on a creative thing that had my name on it, I always wanted to impress or like make it a thing or take the time to make it look good, because that's how my parents were. And so, even if they were working in medicine or whatever, I mean, they had the love of being a parent and make something really cool, and then also like, all right, let's make it really creative and like let's make it better than like the other kids or whatever. And I don't remember what else anyone else made, but I just remember thinking like that is like the coolest thing. I like I have like an image in my head like looking at the table, like whenever I saw it in the morning, it was like so sick.
It was game day.
It was awesome.
It was right there.
It was awesome. I loved it.
I feel like that's like the telltale sign of a creative kid is, the school project comes home and they're like, ooh, a book report. Let me, make the diorama and let me do all of this. And I feel like it just is that next leveling.
Yeah.
But That's really cool. Okay, so you work in sports design, and I feel like the pacing of sports design is unlike many other industries where it's same day turnarounds, hype graphics, updates to. I'll let you talk to all the graphics of that, but could you share with us maybe like what that pacing looks like and kind of the deliverables that you'll turn around during a sports season?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot, and our team services our in-game stadium type of deliverables. So we have our big infinity screen, which is like very specced out and very unique to our stadium, so it makes it kind of difficult. But we'll have like our ribbons, we'll have like our social media graphics, and I don't handle all of them personally. Like our team is probably like 6 designers at this point, but we all kind of have our different disciplines. So we have people that are more illustrator focused, people that are more like social media focused. So that's like me and our social media designer. But I mean, there's just, if I were to put a number on it, I mean, I'd probably say like, thousands of graphics made through the year. But yeah, it's go, go, go. You'll get to your desk on Monday after playing a game on Sunday. Jeez. And start prepping for the next week. But it's all fun work. It's one of those things where it's like, it gets busy, of course. It can feel like a job at times, but I mean, what cooler thing to do than just make stuff for a team and make stuff for people is like, it's like people's favorite team. Like they pay money to go see these guys on Sunday. Like, when you make their in-game experience, with the infinity screen and the ribbons, like feel very immersive. Like it's such a cool part of our job. It makes like all of it worth it. And of course, like, there's late nights and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you're making really cool stuff, but the pace is, it's quick. And obviously like in the off season, things kind of like let up a little bit. I always joke with people that, my parents, when I was first working, were like, so what do you do in the off season? Like they were like worried I was going to get fired. I was like, no, like, it's a full-time job. Like we're good. Like, I'm still going to work. Like, don't worry. But it slows down then. That time is more like preparing for like, any big change. Like last year we had like a uniform like announcement, whatever. And so we had 2 different uniforms. You had to build out a creative campaign. That was all kind of done through the off season, trickling into like preseason. So those like higher level campaigns kind of get the most eyes and the most attention like in those downtimes. But once the season starts, it's go, go, go.
This may be too technical, but are you guys turning around graphics? Or are you using a lot of templates of like, hey, if the team wins today, this is the graphic that's being posted, or if the team doesn't, we're not posting anything? Or how are you guys turning out things?
That is a question for our social media people. Fair. So Megan Julian, like shout out, she is like one of the smartest people when it comes to social media. She's so savvy. She's very like reactive isn't the right word, but like she knows how to read a moment and then make like designs or build out a campaign like from those moments. Like wow. she orchestrates it. She's great. And then our design team will kind of, look at what she says and what she wants to do for the programming after a win or a loss. And we'll make stuff kind of to fit that vision. It takes a different type of brain, I think, to like work in social media. Like I'm not a very savvy social media guy. Like I don't post every day. I don't really look at algorithms. Like I just post stuff that I like, and that's great. But there's people that really do have a sense of like, okay, got to post at this time. It's got to follow this cadence. We can't say this. We have to do this. Like and have a really detailed approach to that. So whenever like we win, like we do stuff that's very reactionary. Like out of home billboards, for example. Like we'll get a win, we'll pull a picture from the game, and we'll like get it up like that same night. Like it's
wow.
It's go go go. But it's one of those things where it's not always like that. So it's, whenever it happens, it's not like, you get too swamped and like, oh, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do it. Like it always ends up taking care of itself pretty easily. Sure. But yeah, that's kind of the cadence.
That's wild. So I think there's also, even before this we were chatting, very specialized language of ribbons for people who don't know. Yeah. What is that?
So a ribbon is basically the LED strips that go and surround like the inner bowl of a stadium. And so we'll use that to display either like sponsorship information, or like if we want to renew season tickets, we'll like add a little ad for that there. But they're not like like super technical, but they're just very annoying to like design for. You kind of have to use like certain fonts. Like you don't want to use a font that's very like vertically dominant. You want something that can stretch out, so it can read better and whatever. And like, I never designed for like a stadium until like I came here. So it was one of those things where it was a little bit of a learning curve. But then once we, got the hang of it, it was pretty cool. Cause we'd sit in the press box whenever we're like designing these things like on a rehearsal day. And so we'd look down at the LEDs, and it would always be a big problem if like you couldn't read it. It's like, how is anyone supposed to read this? Like whatever. And then I'm like, oh yeah, that was my bad.
Oh, can you test it in real time?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
that's great.
it does take a little bit of a lag just because like the stadium team there has to like get it.
But within the
programmed.
hour.
Yeah.
Within
For sure.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. So
That's
it's pretty
cool.
easy to adjust. Once you kind of know the issues, but yeah, it definitely is like a weird type of thing to design for. It's not like a 4x5 or 1x1 where you have all this space and can include players, and it's very like you have to kind of, what's the quickest way to read text? You don't want to have the a fan kind of like be looking around like, where do I look, whatever. It's like that's like the worst thing to do.
Right.
So kind of building it to where it's like pretty easy to follow and read. It's not like the most technical thing, but it's just one thing that we think about on top of like the actual content and how we're going to lay it out and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think even when you like build up for a job, right? You apply for the job, you get the job, you start it in an industry, and you think, oh, I have this experience, and then you get, met with, oh, this is the dimension that I'm building in, or these are the things that I had no idea about. How did you kind of adapt to that, or like what mindset did you have as you're getting these new deliverables that you were just like not necessarily experienced in?
Yeah, it was like I said, a little bit of a learning curve, but I mean, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's part of the job. Like you have to learn. And obviously you're better for learning more things. Like how to design for stadium is a really cool experience. And like you have a different type of rewarding feeling when like you go to a game day and you contributed to the things that are there and things that people are seeing on the video board. And, we always get a kick out of, we'll have like, promotions throughout the game and fans will like really cheer, really get after it. And there was one game in particular, I forget who it was, but I think it was against the Vikings last year. It was, or maybe it wasn't. It was a team. It was close in the fourth quarter. It was the Eagles. It was the Eagles game. It was close in the fourth quarter, and there was this like video that our video team had put together, and the crowd, like I've never heard a crowd pop like that. Like it was absurd going into the fourth quarter, and like I don't know if it equated to like the players playing better, but like it was hard to feel that they didn't hear that and like get really like juiced up.
Yeah.
And like feeling like, I never made the video, whatever. I made the ribbons. It's a really small thing, but knowing that like you can't have that effect with the crowd kind of leads to a little bit of a competitive advantage. Like that's like a really cool feeling. So I remember that because that was like a really neat experience.
So you are responsible for the win is what I'm hearing.
The team is, it's always the team,
That's so cool. Are there any other like, really unique graphics or deliverables that you have as we talk about sports, and then we can move on, but I'm just curious.
I think the one thing that's always interesting is like the physical signage that goes into hosting events. So like for draft parties, like that we had one this past year for the draft that, they're really unique specs. Those are interesting. And then for those new uniforms, like the rebrand we did with those, we had to have like new, what we call stadium wraps. So it's basically like anything that appears behind like the touchdown, like the end zone, and on the sidelines. And like designing those are really weird. Like they're really janky because they have to like fold over like the padding, and like it's really weird. There's a lot of like safe space and the whole thing. I don't know. But it's really cool to design for, and it's a really unique thing. And I wouldn't say like my skill set really aligns with it, but it eventually has to, because that's what you're being brought in to do, is make everything and kind of establish the visual identity with the team. So that was like my way of learning a new skill to still be able to do that. But yeah, a lot of unique type of things we're making.
Yeah, sure. I feel like people, graduate school and feel like, like I have a degree, or like, I'm ready for it. And then you get to your job on the first day and you're like, oh yeah, no, they didn't teach us this.
Yeah.
Or, oh, that, no, I don't know anything about that either.
You get a little bit of that imposter syndrome. Like
totally.
I had that a little bit when I was starting, was like, I don't know how to do any of this. Like I know how to make the social graphics, and that wasn't what I got hired to do. Like that was not really a part of my role, because we had someone for that. And so really kind of wanted to make yourself useful early on and kind of find the places where, there wasn't a designer working for it. And Stadium ended up being that, where it was kind of our creative director that was handling most of that work. And then realizing he needed a little bit more support there. So kind of offered to do more of that stuff. And now it's a big part of my role, along with the social stuff now, and with like ticketing, that's a huge part. But yeah, it's just a bunch of different types of stuff. But yeah, that imposter syndrome you get a little bit, but our team has been really great, and like everyone's learning new things at the same time. Everyone's like, no one's judging. Like everyone is there, kind of just trying to make some really cool stuff, and you feel like it feels really great to be a part of that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like teamwork or just environment can really make or break a creative experience.
Yeah.
Like, do I feel safe to ask the question that I don't know what I'm doing?
Sure.
Or like, can I do all of that? So that's awesome to hear that, teamwork is on the field and off the field for you guys as well.
For sure.
That's
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Chat, check in.
Just more fans of Jorge.
I believe it.
Someone said Jorge doesn't need Sunday ticket. He is Sunday ticket.
What?
Awesome.
That stuff.
Ryan Selvey says hello. And yeah, just more fans of
That's sick.
everything you guys are saying.
What's up? What's up?
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks for hopping in to the chat. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Love you, chat.
Always happy you guys are here, chat. Thank you for being here. Okay, you have, I feel like, a really remarkable mindset when it comes to kind of this like creative resilience. I feel like you shared this point of, you know, when you're an athlete, you practice, you get better. That's just kind of obvious, right? Like, okay, more laps, more this, whatever, I'm going to get better. I feel like sometimes when it comes to design, you don't necessarily feel the same way. You feel like, oh, I'm never going to get better or whatever.
Yeah.
But you kind of took that mentality of, you know what, I know practice does help. It does improve. Can you share more about that mindset?
Yeah, I think that's a really cool thing. And one of the things I like really enjoy is like I said, like learning new hobbies. So I wouldn't say I'm good at guitar. Like I put it down for a while, but I just remember getting really frustrated with like learning that new skill. And I think people don't really like being a beginner at anything. And I think that's just kind of human nature. But having a skill that you already know there was a roadmap for how to get better really helps you learn something from scratch. Like, okay, like, well, I remember when I couldn't kick a soccer ball. Like I couldn't kick with my left foot or whatever. And then like, what did I do to fix that? Well, I practiced. And so, you know, that ends up being like a little bit of proof that like, okay, I've done this before with something else. It's going to, you know, suck. It's going to take a long time to do it here, but I know I can do it. And then having that be something that persists and kind of keeps you motivated to keep showing up. I think that for me, you know, soccer was that first skill that I learned that was like, you know, a bit of a framework of like how I'll take on new skills. And then it was design. Then I, you know, was able to figure that out. And then now with any other hobby or new skills or stuff like that, like I feel like, okay, like I've taught myself things before. I know that I have a rough time starting and I really want to quit early on, but with a little bit of persistence, you know, you get better. And so for me, that's always been a little bit of a mindset. Like I definitely got that from my parents. Like they've always pushed me to like, you know, not quit on things and, you know, like they want me to be the best version of myself. And I think that, you know, when I moved out here and when I went to college, like, you know, you are the person that has to coach yourself to be better. Like, you know, no one's there to like tell you, you know, you got to go to class, you got to do your homework, like, except for you. And so that like internal monologue really, you know, gets born there and kind of lives there. And I feel like that's been really helpful in my career where, you know, there's stuff that needs to get done. You know, you'll, you know, work till 2, 3, 4 in the morning to like get it done. And then you got to go to work the next day. And, you know, it's a lot, but it's really rewarding. You know, it's like, this is the career you chose. This is the, you know, path that you chose. And every day that you get to make something that's a reflection of yourself and it's out in the world, like that's something to be proud of. And to do that over, you know, years is the goal. And I'm just excited to see where that ends up, really. That'd be really cool.
I feel like you have a lot of sports questions as a sports person. You don't have to answer right now, but if you want to cook on a question,
yeah,
we'll come back to you unless you have one.
But
no, go
back to
ahead.
me in like a couple minutes.
All right. Okay, so something that you shared with me too is that you want to be not just necessarily the person who has the best work, but the best like all around, a great communicator, easy to work with. Where does that come from? And then how are you holding yourself to that standard?
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where I feel like I've worked with people in the past or worked in situations where like you're not being fully communicated with. And so when you're dealing with clients or servicing clients, like, you know, being on the other end of it, you know, like being in the dark with anything is like, it's like the worst, you know, because if something needs to get done, like, you know, by tomorrow at 9 a.m. and people don't know where it is or can't hear from you. Yeah. They're like, you know, it's kind of your reputation that's kind of on the line. So the way I see it is like for my freelance work, it's a mega priority to make sure like I'm always answering emails. Like I'll get them at really obscure times. Like there's, you know, I've worked with people that work in, you know, Europe and they'll come to me and they'll be like, hey, like, you know, just checking in, like where are these things? And, you know, these emails will come in at 3 or 4 in the morning and I'll answer them. Like I'll set an alarm to like get up early to like answer, just to kind of like maintain that reputation of like this person's responsive, this person's trustworthy. Cause, you know, like you said, with sports, things change really quick and we'll need stuff, you know, yesterday. And, you know, we got to go to the first person that comes to mind. I think the first person that comes to mind is the person that's the most responsive and the one that you can rely on the most. And so I figure that's a really good place to develop a reputation is the reliability. So freelance has been a really great place to explore that. I know like with you and working with you to kind of do more paid content and stuff like that, like it is that. Like, you know, I want to make sure that you know when to expect things from me. that I'm not going dark, and that you see things, you know, a day or two before they're needed, so that, you know, if there's any big changes, like we can get to them and still get things on time. So it's a big focal point. I don't really know exactly where it comes from. I think it is a little bit of anxiety of like, you know, I don't like to leave things like undone.
Yeah.
You know, it's hard for me to like go enjoy things and go out to eat, or, you know, have like nice dinners or go to the movies when I know like things need to get done. I think that's part of it for sure. But I think ultimately it's not a bad type of outlook to have, especially with the work that has your name on it.
Nothing like a little anxiety to make sure that you're hitting your deadlines. You know?
No, it's the secret sauce for sure.
You told me too, you're like, it's not necessarily the product, it's almost this peace of mind, which I feel like is what you're touching on for that client experience of like, we can trust him, we know that he's going to be there, he's going to deliver the work, but also if there is a problem, he's going to tell us early on, right?
Sure.
It's that whole experience.
No, that absolutely is like, I mean, that is what it is. I mean, when people I think it's a little bit of investment. Like you deal with a freelance client and they're like, hey, like, you know, we need these things and like, this is our budget for it. Like you look at the budget and you're like, okay, this is, like, you want to make sure that you're delivering your side of the deal. Like, you know, it's very important that you're doing that, because not like with the expectation of future work, but really just like, you know, it's the price of doing business is like, they're holding up their side of the bargain, I got to do mine. And that's the thing that I say, you know, for me is like, you don't pay me for the project, you pay me for the peace of mind. Like that really is like what I think is when you can go to bed knowing the project will be done in the morning and that you can review it and then I'll respond like within 30 minutes. Like, you know, that's all you need. Like that would make me feel like, as, you know, if I was paying someone to do something, I always get a kick out of knowing that someone is able to respond and someone who is able to keep me up to date on the things that we're doing. That makes me, like you said, with the anxiety, like want to get things done, like that helps satiate it a little bit. It makes me know that things are getting done.
Yeah. Okay. I have one quick follow up on this and then your question time. Yeah. How do you balance then having this confidence of like, I know my worth, I know what I bring to the table, but also this openness of, hey, I'm willing to work with you and I'm willing to be open to what it is that you're asking me to do. How do you kind of balance those hand in hand?
For sure. Well, I think part of it is very helpful in that I have a full-time source of income. So, you know, I don't need to take every project that comes my way. I also think part of it is like, I do my best work when I know I'm a good fit for the person I'm working with. So if like I have people coming to me that are not really adjacent to like sports or kind of in different type of segments, and I'm privileged enough to like be like, you know, I don't think that will be a good match, or hey, like, you know, I'm very flattered that you think I'd be able to help you out with this project, but like I'm not sure we're a good fit. I'm happy to point you to the direction of someone who can do that. You know, no problem at all. But just I don't know if we're going to be able to slot that in with the type of work that we do. And obviously, it's a extreme luxury to have that. You know, I'm only able to do because I have a full-time job. But yeah, knowing your worth is difficult. You know, my dad has always been a big proponent of like, you know, you gotta you know, be confident. You got to ask for what you feel like you deserve. And that's a hard thing. I mean, people don't really know what that is. And it's easy to say. It's another thing to actually ask and do it. So it's, you know, it's a learning process for everybody. I think, you know, sometimes you do have to kind of swing for the fences. And, you know, ultimately the way I see it at the end of the day, people need to get work done. And so they'll at least tell you that this is either out of their budget or in their budget, and either move on from you, and then you'll know, okay, maybe that was too much, maybe I shouldn't have asked for that. Or they'll give you the feedback of, hey, that sounds good, whatever. And then whenever that happens, you're like, oh, well, you know, I know a little bit closer, you know, what my value is, or if my value increased, now I know what it is. And so kind of always keeping tabs on that, and you know, knowing I put a lot of time in my work. Like I really enjoy the craft of doing it and doing it well.
Yeah.
And so knowing that, like, whenever I ask for a certain amount of money or whenever I give, you know, my rates, I can be confident that I stand behind the quality of those rates. And so I don't really feel like I'm, you know, asking for more or less or whatever. I just feel like that's an accurate amount that I think reflects my investment to my craft. So that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. I mean, I think pricing is, you know, every freelancer's, you know, worst
Nobody likes to
nightmare.
talk about
You know,
it,
you're
yeah.
like, oh, I don't know. You know, so I think that's really good advice. If, you know, I stand behind my work, I know the quality I'm giving, and if this is a fit, this is a fit. And if it's not,
for sure,
sorry.
And people that do want to like work with you, like they will find ways to work with you.
Yep.
Like, you know, it is one of the, it was, you know, lucky working with someone in the past where, you know, I told them and was upfront with my commitments, like, hey, like I'm working with these clients and I'm with, you know, I have my 9 to 5 with my current role. I would love to work with you, but you know, if you can't work with me in these hours, then it won't be possible. And again, happy to, you know, accommodate you and find a different, you know, designer to help you build out this project. But these are this is kind of what I need. And if they really want to work with you, like they will find a way. And that, that client, like, kudos to them. Like they found a way, they worked with me and my schedule, and we made some really great work. And I was very, very proud of what we did and the span that we did. And yeah, my side of the bargain is like, I'm burning the candle at both ends, but like the work I stood behind it. And so, it was a really great opportunity. But yeah, it definitely is it's a tough thing to balance for sure.
I feel like there's the saying, right? Like clear is kind. And I feel like that really applies to the client work too.
For sure.
Like if I'm going to be upfront with you and tell you like, this is what I can do, I would hope that you would do the same to me. And I think sometimes freelancers think, oh, let me not tell them the whole story because I don't want to worry them or I don't want to do this. And like, there's a time and place for some of that. Yeah. But I think also being like realistic, this is what it is. And like, this is what I'm coming to the table with. I think there is a lot to say for that.
Yeah. The transparency, I think it's such a huge part of dealing with people. Like you said, nobody wants to, feel in the dark. Everyone wants to, kind of feel like they're getting their side of the investment in that relationship. And so, anything you can do to kind of put them at ease, and the transparency absolutely does that. Anything like that, it always helps.
So good. All right.
Yeah.
How are we doing over here?
Well, really quick, the chat is loving everything you're saying. Just some really kind things. Someone said Jorge is one of the best mentors there is, wise beyond his years, which is sick.
That's very thoughtful.
And then someone said Jorge is articulate, always willing to go above and beyond when answering questions I have. So I'm guessing you might know this person, Wes Rowe.
Oh yeah. I think I answered some stuff on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Okay,
wow.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, on the LinkedIn. That's awesome.
At LinkedIn grind. Yeah, that's what they're saying.
That is a grind.
Yeah.
It is a grind.
No fun for me there.
Yeah, so going back to kind of the stadium experience, I think some of my favorite sports moments, like in person, is when a big thing happens. Like growing up, we went to a lot of Angels games, and they would always do like the fireworks, and then also mix in with like graphics on the screen.
Sure.
And it just like adds to the whole experience. Is there like a favorite for you, like there? Because SoFi is a huge stadium.
It is a huge stadium.
Touchdown, I'm thinking interception. Like, are there like moments in the game that you just?
I think what I said earlier with that third quarter going into fourth quarter, like video montage, like we'll play that. Oh, actually, I'm lying. It's got to be Thunderstruck. We do like Thunderstruck at the beginning of the game. Yeah, like I'm not gonna overcomplicate the answer. Like that is like the coolest thing. Like they do this thing where like we basically like the stadium like goes blackout. Like where in a night game it really, because we play a lot of our games in the day, unfortunately, so you don't really get that full effect. But like a primetime game, nothing better. Like we'll play the video, or we'll play like intros, and then we'll row by row or section by section, the lights just like shut off. Yes. And then we play Thunderstruck, and then we play like our video like to get into the game. It is like chills every single time. Let's and like go. We go to all the home games, whatever, like it's but like that moment is so you cannot help but feel like a fan. And I think that's such a testament to like the people that we work with, and like even getting people who see this every rehearsal, every game day, getting them feel like feeling amped. Like, I mean, they do a great job. It's such a great way to kind of get in that football mood and just know like you're about to see a great game. Like I absolutely love it.
That's so sick. Do you ever interact with the players?
Yeah, media day is probably the time that we do it the most. They're kind of in a separate side of the building, so they kind of have their own coaches, their own like offices, all that kind of stuff are the floor below us. But we'll our cafeteria, like we have like our staff times to go eat lunch, but sometimes they'll come in after practice. So it's really cool. It's funny to see me. I'm a shorter guy, so standing next to like a Joe Alt or something like that, like you're like, oh my god, like this dude is humongous. Like, but it's a super cool thing, and a lot of the players are very excited to have the camera in front of them, and a lot of them are just like really great sports, especially with like the puppy shoot. Like it's one of those things where it's like no one's asking you to be buddy with the dog, and some people are like, I'm good, like I won't, but like I'll give a shout out to like Derwin James. Like, I mean, absolute, like, I mean, he's great vibes, great energy always. When we're doing the shoot, like he was just like, he was buoying up the dog. Like it was awesome. And, these guys are extremely successful at what they do, and to like take a step back, just be like, just really great people to work with. And, we don't interact with them often, but when we do, like, it's a really great experience, in part just because of how open they are. Because it is one of those things where as time persists, like athletes and social media, it becomes more and more like a thing. It's kind of unavoidable, and building out a personal brand with these athletes is such a, like, especially with like NIL and college athletics, like that is such a huge growing part of like the social media landscape. And so, these players are becoming a lot more excited to get involved with videos and do things. And at least that's what I've noticed, like, from the outside looking in on like other, college teams and stuff. But yeah, it's, you'd really never get over it.
Are you guys
It's
producing
crazy.
content for players too, or is it? Do they have their
Not
own
us
teams?
individually, but you'll see, for example, like the soccer tournament, there's a lot of, photographers that will not get invited or things like that. And people, these athletes still want to work with their people because they know their angles, things they like, their style. And so just seeing that relationship has been a new thing that I've started to see. I'm like, oh, like that's really neat. Like I'm curious where I could insert my own type of work into that. But it's one of those things where you're working, at a facility, you're following stuff on social media, you're always learning, how the landscape is evolving, and you're just trying to figure out different ways to like add your own skill set into it. So it's always, I could just get so geeked talking about it and thinking about it. It's really cool.
That's
I love
cool,
it.
man. That's really exciting.
Cool. I do want to talk a little bit specifically about your portfolio. We are in our final like 5-ish minutes here.
Sure.
So you do some really great portrait work, and you have a really unique approach to how you're creating like player graphics and the treatments that you're doing.
Sure.
What is your secret sauce, or like what are the things that you've learned over the years? You're like, okay, this is my approach to it, or these are the colors that I use and why.
Yeah. I'm really like, if people look at my work, like I'm really partial to like pink, orange, and like those types of colors, like really vibrant and kind of, I always try to make sure that the jersey of the player is separate from the background and like very like contrasty. So for example, if it's like, if the player's wearing a black jersey, like I don't want to make the background black or white. Like, I mean, it's contrast, but like, you want something that will stand out on the feed. And for me, like I found like yellow, pink, sometimes, white and red, blue, like just these really big pops of colors. They really stand out. And so for me, I like that type of stuff anyways. So like, I'm always, bringing inspiration on Pinterest and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a style that's developed, and, it kind of feels weird to call it like my style. It is just a collection of a lot of people that I really enjoyed, like what we talked about earlier, like seeing their work and like, oh, I could do that. And then like inserting it to my own. So it very much is like, a lot of other designers' fingerprints are on the work that I do. But ultimately just really, the treatment I spend a lot of time on, that's one of those things where, my boss always tells me my work looks kind of like dreamy, and it's kind of like in its own space. Super like sick that it feels that way. I don't really think too much about it when I make it. I'm just like, okay, this player would look sick. This is a photo of him dunking. Like, what's the best way to make this look unique, but also like really enhance like what's already happening in the photo. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a style that's developed, but definitely it's, a lot of other designers that contributed to it. A lot of people like where, the mentorship, that Wes had mentioned, like, that was done to me. Like a lot of people that I've reached out to for help, like have, been like, yeah, they take the time, they hop on a call or they text me back and say like, this is where you should charge for your rates, or like, this is the type of people you should look for internships. Like, the mentorship has been very helpful for me. And so like seeing that is really cool, because like paying it forward is a big piece of like what I like to do. I just love talking to people about design and teaching people new things. So, kind of veered away from the answer, but the style is definitely a collection of a lot of other people. So
yeah. Okay. I have one closing question for you
Sure.
then, and kind of related to that. What advice would you have for another math major who thinks, I don't really know if this is what I want to do. I really want to go in a creative field, or someone who is looking to start a creative career? What advice would you give them?
I mean, I would just say life's too short to do something you don't want to do. And I think there's a quote from Jim Carrey that I think is like, it's really spot on. Is like, you can fail at doing something you don't like, so you might as well take a shot at doing something that you do love. And I think that's always stuck with me as a really cool reminder that like, what a gift it is to be able to be paid and to make a living just making things and thinking about things and experimenting with things. Like, scientists do that. And, I've said like, people in my life are healthcare professionals, like they do that. They save lives, they do some really legit stuff. But in our own way, our work is very unique and a reflection of ourselves, and helps people also feel like, oh, I can make stuff. Like I want to, make this a career. And I just feel very impassioned with the idea that like, you are here to make things, and every day is an opportunity to like see something that someone else made and be able to like remix it to be your own, and I just think it's just such a gift. But yeah, I would just say lean into those things that you like. Everyone has different trades, different hobbies, different things that they really enjoy, and find a way to mix that into what you make, because then it doesn't become something that's cool. It becomes something that's cool, and it's it's yours.
Yeah.
It's uniquely yours. And I think that's maybe the best advice that I could give is just lean into what you want to do. If it's making stuff, I would say absolutely lean into it and enjoy it. It's a great career.
So good. Great closing words. Well, Jorge, thanks so much for sitting down with us. Carlos, thank you for being here. Chat, thank you for you being here and participating in the conversation with us. So we are going to be live tomorrow at 9 a.m. in the studio where we are today, just a little bit that way, showcasing these workflows in real life. So if you want to tune in, see the behind the scenes, we would love for you to be there. But thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next episode.